All right, welcome back to Scott Fishing and Eats. Fishing West Branch, Susquehanna this week. Heading up to fish the West Branch in that stretch from Montoursville to Muncie on the West Branch, Susquehanna. So we're going to talk a little bit about baits, my experience from last fall, as well as just my experience on the Susquehanna in general, as well as what I'm seeing here on my local river, the Upper Potomac, which a lot of times can correlate somewhat to probably more so to the West Branch Susquehanna than the main stem Susquehanna. So we're going to talk a little bit about baits. What we got going on is we got basically 2.9, 2.5 to 3 feet is basically the average water depth of the water in the river right now. If you take the average gauges all along the West Branch from Williamsport all the way down to Lewisburg, which is kind of a bend on the West Branch. If you were to do the entire stretch. So we kind of know the water temperatures have dropped. Very similar. I checked at what the temperatures were last year at the same time. So we know that the smallmouth are basically more than likely going to behave pattern-wise very similar to the way they did last year. When you look at the weather, you look at the depth, and you look at what's been happening for the last week or so, we know they're repositioning. So we know that the smallies are moving in groups of 6 or 8, kind of moving together, repositioning. Some people call it a transition because they're moving from one place of the river to the other, hence transition. But really it's a reposition. And in the meantime, they're going to be feeding up, right, on your bait fish. Now, Susquehanna is very similar to Upper Potomac and maybe your river system too, because it's primarily going to be feeding on 2 things. One, the crawfish, crayfish, mudbug, whatever you want to call them, okay? And really this year's spawning class of bait fish, okay? Doesn't really matter what you categorize it at, whether you categorize them as minnows or shiners or, that, but as well as, your sunfish bait fish, okay? Your late spawns on your crappie and on your bluegill and on things like that. If they're they spawned in August, okay, then they're the right size in that size for Susquehanna. In that regard, West Branch is a lot more aligned with Upper Potomac size bait fish. So I have that similarity working for me in terms of how I want to approach what I'm going to pack out with me to go, because I do not want to take an excessive amount of gear and baits and all of that stuff. Okay, that's not really how I want to roll. I basically want to take some different segments of your bait arsenal that are going to be effective. Okay, and for October, again, lower about normal though, but lower water conditions. Some conditions like west of Williamsport are at 1 foot. Okay, reports of it being just over 1 foot deep. So 1 foot to 3 feet, right? That's what we got to work with, all right? And our water temperature was falling off about 13, 14 degrees here in the last 2 weeks. So that's really what we got to work with. So we're going to start traditionally with top water, okay? When we go through this. So we're going to work from the top of the water column down to the river composition on the bottom in terms of packing out different bait presentations that we want to take. So the first one we're going to start with is obviously going to be our jerkbait, okay? And right now, primarily, I'm leaning towards this jerkbait right here, okay? Because it mirrors a lot of that in the river system, okay? It's been successful on all of our river systems, from Monocacy to Upper Potomac to Allegheny and Susquehanna. So I'm leaning towards this right here, jerkbait. Love that pattern. And I'm actually going to go with, okay, it's got the colorations, okay, of our shiner, okay? And that's going to be a theme here, crawl and shiner on the Susquehanna, okay? So these are 2 of the primary jerkbaits that I'm going to take with me. I'm also going to take a popper, okay? I'm also going to take that, all right? I prefer now, okay, the rainbow, just because I know that those rainbow trout is getting stocked. Now, it may not be getting stocked in this particular stretch of any river or so, but this is the time of year that the rainbow trout, brown trout, golden trout, all of that gets stocked in a lot of areas from Pennsylvania to Maryland and Virginia, okay? So this, I'll take this just to kind of have in case I see that dynamic. Don't expect to, but you never know, okay? Plus, I just like that action. And it has less to do with necessarily the color pattern as much as it has to do with that kind of, especially if I'm dealing with a foot of water, right? Again, because I want to stay up on top, all right? And one of the other like gems, okay, been my experience, you don't hear very many people talk about anymore. Downsizing your baits, one of the ones that will absolutely just crush smallmouth is go with a little jointed, okay? This color, golds, yellows, blacks, okay? Phenomenal color pattern, all right? Look at that size of that. Very small, okay? Again, mimics the bait fish size, okay? Certainly can go big. Some people will be going big. Remember, there's a Bassmaster Kayak Nation Series event this weekend on the Susquehanna, on parts of the Susquehanna, North Branch, West Branch, and Main Stem. A lot of those guys may be going big, and big. And, you know, because a lot of times they're going for that big bite. So that's really what I'm looking at for there, okay? And then obviously my second bait, depending on conditions, is going to be the spinnerbait. Spinnerbait has been fire right now down on the Upper Potomac. I completely expected to translate to the West Branch Susquehanna. And I do it try to pack out two different mindsets. One, normal, like just, okay, if conditions are perfect and right for the spinnerbait, I am going to go with the shiner pattern, okay? Shiner pattern, spinnerbaits. These are my two favorite, okay? Can't go not wrong with anything shiner pattern. You can also translate this for a chatterbait in traditional shiner colors. But your spinnerbait colors in shiner with that brown, a little bit of flash, obviously. These are the coloration patterns that work. Now, a lot of guys will throw all white. That can work. Bait fish, all that stuff, obviously. But those are the primary two that I'm going to pack out. And then I'm going to pack out two more in the event that the rain comes in tonight, okay? And we get a little bit of stain, a little bit of muddier water like we got the other day on the Potomac with the creeks, okay, as they kind of dump into the river. I'm going to go with, okay, these are two of my favorite spinnerbaits for those conditions, okay? If I can get that skirt all messed, so you can see primarily what I got. I got that same color that's in this skirt as well, okay? And I love these offset. See how it's a little bit offset? Probably a little bit different than many of the traditional spinnerbaits that you've seen in terms of the shank and in terms of how I have that placed on that custom spinnerbait, okay? Same with this. Again, targeting smallmouth is primarily my species. So I'm not dealing with a big largemouth, okay? I'm dealing with a smallmouth, right? That whole jaw area is smaller, so we want to make sure that when it comes up, it's going to get that smaller style hook, okay, set up in there, okay? So those are two for like the muddier water or stained water or just something where the water's just not really as clear. And those are the spinnerbaits. Now for chatter junkies, okay? For the chatterbait, I primarily only go. I'm not a big chatterbait guy. I know I joke around with a lot of people. Chatterbaits are for cheaters. But I do always take a chatterbait, at least one chatterbait. I will most likely take two chatterbaits with me. And definitely will be the go-to, which is the crawl color chatterbait. My chatterbaits, I know I differ from a lot of people. I know I fish different, but I just can't get away from the success and the catch rates of the actual like grub, okay, as opposed to the paddle tail swim bait and some of the other trailers on chatterbaits. It could very well be that you know, my catch rate is directly tied to the fact that this is different, okay? They're not used to seeing that action as much as the traditional paddle tail and some of the other trailers that people have widely accepted. And again, with smallies, man, it's all about entice. They're aggressive. but it's about enticing that strike, okay? So whatever you do that changes it up a little bit, fish different, okay? Because they're used to seeing everything. And then, of course, the whole noise setup, okay, of your different chatterbait, you know, comes into play. If they're conditioned to that noise of a particular, like, chatterbait, I know a lot of people are like, you know, are down with jackhammers, but in some stretches of rivers, it's been overplayed. It's just been fished so much that, yes, they still get bit, but they're not getting bit nearly as much as they were because everybody's throwing them. Throw a little change up, okay? So I'm going to definitely go with the crawl. Crawl's definitely coming with me. You'll see that pattern replicate here in a minute. And then I'm going to take the solid white, okay? I'll just take a solid white one. But again, see it? Grub on the back, right? Okay? Changing color, but not the action, okay? Because I know the action's successful for me, all right? More so than some of the other ones. The only other option I would have, and I may just stick it in just in case, is it's basically a variation of this, only with some chartreuse, okay? Don't sleep on that simple, very simple chartreuse and white, okay? Depending on the weather, depending on the overcast, depending on conditions, this actually may be the one. So definitely want to throw that into the mix. As far as the grubs go, just while I'll pigtail on that, I've got to take my hair jigs, okay? Because I don't know what to expect. I may come into some pools. I may come into some deeper water. It's a 4 feet river composition impregnation. What I guess impregnate. I don't know what the right word is. Indention into the river where they're sitting on the bottom, looking up, waiting to ambush, waiting to feed. Dropping simple hair jig. These are the two colors, okay? One, always take with me black, okay? Always take with me black. It's got hair on there with the tail. And then I've got, okay, one of the most popular ones right there. Cannot keep these tied, okay? These just get annihilated and destroyed, okay, by smallmouth. And it doesn't matter whether they're Maryland smallmouth, Pennsylvania smallmouth, Virginia smallmouth, okay? It's just green pumpkin, brown, copper, shiner. That coloration is just outstanding. Okay, so I want to just tie that in with that because of the trailer. Now, okay, I want to get in the middle of the column. Okay, obviously you could throw that chatterbait in there too, but in the middle of that water column. Again, we're only in like now at this point we're only in like 2 feet of water, 2-3 feet of water. So maybe we're a foot off in the water column. I'm gonna go with what absolutely is one of the most underrated. Both of these are most underrated bait presentations you can get right now, and they come from first gen fishing. Okay, this is called a top spin. All right, a top spin, and I'll change this out depending on what I'm looking at. But I'll start with this. But I've got about 6 different that I'll load up on here. Different colors. The tails will be different. I can switch to a paddle tail. I can switch to the different for that action on the bottom. But you really want that flash. And this just moves, okay? It bounces off everything, all right? So this is called a first gen top end, and I like top spin, and I like the molten crawl, okay? I just like red, the key on that red, okay? Now the other one from first gen that is extremely, no one is durable, but it also catches a ton of smallmouth, is your first gen jaw dropper, okay? This is how I present it going out in my river, and I'm taking it. I got a couple already rigged up, just different colors for West Branch. That is your jaw dropper, okay? Look at the front. Look at that. All right, you're working. This is the bottom now. We're talking about bottom composition now, okay? Crawl, soft plastic, okay? Work the bottom. They're going to be feeding up on crawl. It's just a matter of what they prefer, okay? So in that regard, I'm going to go with this, okay? The other thing, I will also take my go-to underspin, of course, paddle tail, underspin, cover a lot of water, see if they're chasing, all that. That's a no-brainer right there. But as far as the bottom, I'm really going to concentrate on the jaw dropper, okay? and then also some jigs, okay? And these jigs are fundamentally going to be different, okay? In how they move on the bottom, their profiles, okay? I can start with the simple, again, crawl pattern, little paddle tail, okay? To a bigger, more of a trailer crawl profile if I want to go big, okay? And I love that. See how we've got that hair on there, red? If you can see that, red. Let them key on the dying bait fish, dying crawl, like that red in the crawl that happens in October in the shell, okay? That's what we want them to focus on. Now, what I can also do, and I probably will do, this profile is a little bit big, okay? And if I see that 3 to 4 inch crawl, I will keep it. If I'm seeing 2-inch smaller crawl, depending on the population density, I'll take the trailer off. That's kind of how I do it. Or I also switch to this right here, okay? This is a custom painted to match the crawl, a rusty crawl in the Susquehanna, okay? It's custom painted by Willamette Weapon Lures out of Washington State, which has a tremendous crawl population. Okay, Brian Chapman is the bait maker. He knows crawl very, very well. Look at that crawl. How much that looks like your Susquehanna. Okay, crawl during certain times of the year, especially as we approach fall and into winter. Okay, phenomenal little bait. Okay, cannot get these patterns in crawl. Okay, but you can buy the bait. Okay, pretty much at any big box. All right. But you want to have them custom painted. You don't want to use the shad, the chartreuse, and all that. You want to get them custom painted. Now, the last two that I want to talk about in the jig side of it before we run is simple jigs. Okay, look how small that jig is, right? Very simple. Match the profiles of the crawl in the Susquehanna, and that's what I'm packing out for West Branch Susquehanna for tomorrow. Looking forward to getting out there and getting on some smallies.